Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt for the Remnant Underground. So let's talk a little single-issue politics tonight. I know we're never supposed to stoop to that sort of thing because we need to be more, I don't know, Rob, what is it, open-minded and sophisticated than just worry about single issues. You know, not folks like us, we don't do that, you know, because we're really open-minded. But single-issue politics is something I think that needs to be paid a little bit more attention because to varying degrees, everybody's doing it anyway. Technically, it's a form of litmus test, common examples being what? Abortion, taxation, animal rights, the environment, guns, and etc. The pro-life movement in the United States is an example of a fairly significant single-issue voter bloc, and I want to talk about that tonight. What's odd about these poor folks is that they kind of take heat from all sides. Of course, it's very chic, Rob, to be concerned about the polar bears and rats and cats and elephants, right? But not so much about the lives of the unborn. You're a downright hillbilly, in fact, if you campaign as a pro-lifer. And we've known this has been going on for some time. So even conservative spokesmen regularly admonish our poor brethren who are pro-life for being single-issue voters. We're sophisticated, and we don't want to be perceived as a bunch of holy joes, holier-than-thous, school-marming everyone to death over the issue of abortion. What animates us is taxation and economy and the job creation and all of that sort of thing. The real issues that motivate and are on the minds of real people in the real world America. But I don't think that's quite true. I think that's a game that everyone's playing. It certainly isn't true for our friends over on the far left, wacky, liberal side of things. For them, it's all single issue, isn't it? It's all about sex. Abortion rights, gay rights, so-called social issues. I mean, these dominate the social left, if you will, when it comes to this political cycle. And we see it every night on CNN and MSNBC and the rest. That's what they're motivated by. And this is having an impact all across the land. I mean, statistically speaking, millennials, these poor characters, these young voters, have really one primary issue that still motivates them, and this can be backed up by statistics and recent studies. And that issue, of course, is the LGBTQRSTUV issue, whatever it is, Rob. I get confused how many alphabets alphabet soup thing we're supposed to put on there. But I think that there's a reason for this because of the breakdown of the family and the effort to break down the family, which began with legalized divorce, of course, and then reached its zenith with legalized abortion many, many years ago. This dominates their education, these poor millennials. It dominates their music, dominates their culture, their lives, their worldview. The LGBTQ whatever issues, and especially gay marriage, spell the end of the traditional family, and therefore that's one thing that lots of emphasis is put on, and it becomes a single issue for our friends on the left. They've given up, these poor millennials, on almost everything else that matters, and to some extent it's understandable. I mean, for example, I don't really blame the typical 18-year-old for giving up on the institution of marriage. When the neighborhood and where these kids, in which these young people grew up, they're dotted with broken homes and infidelity is rampant and so forth. These poor kids learned very early on not to trust institutions such as marriage. After the liberals and the progressives had got done destroying that particular institution. And of course, they're still at it. The millennials don't trust anything anymore. They don't trust the economy. They don't trust government. They don't trust police. They don't trust politicians. Well, for good reason. And they certainly, after the clerical sex scandal in the Catholic Church, for example, even the Catholic Church is something that millennials no longer trust. And I don't blame them for that. That's the nature of the crisis that we're talking about. But these same millennials do care about one thing, largely because of the indoctrination system of public schools that stresses this. They do care about people doing whatever they want sexually. In fact, the millennials are passionate about women's rights to choose, for example, and the right of people to marry whomever they wish, whether that's another man, a woman, both, dogs, cats, whatever. They feel very, very passionate, and that's their single issue. Do as thou wilt has become the whole of their law, exactly as was predicted by the occultist Aleister Crowley 100 and so years ago. This guy whose Satanism was so thinly veiled that he became one of the few that the great Gilbert Keith Chesterton flat out refused to debate. Why? Because he didn't debate with outright evil. But Crowley, as it would have it, was right. He was quite correct. Aleister Crowley was correct. From cradle to grave, we now live in a society that is fixated on doing whatever it pleases. And that's sort of summed up in the "don't you tell me what to do with my body. Get your hands out of my body and out of my bedroom," and so forth. Your law, as they say to the government. It's war, all-out war, on what's left of the Christian social and moral order, which had, as its very point and purpose, you'll recall, the placing of some moral constraints, even, dare I say, restraints, on men and women so that they would do not as they will, but rather as God wills in order to save their souls. A very medieval attitude. And yet it dominated human thought for 1,000 years or more. What about the soul? Today we don't talk so much about that. In politics today, we are dealing with a massive segment of the population that has been so indoctrinated in a form of really, let's face it, de facto philosophical Satanism. Now, not the religion itself, not putting circles in a rock out, or putting rocks in circles out in the woods somewhere, but rather the essential non serviam, which is how it all got started. And abortion, of course, plays a huge part in that process. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, so many good people today are plugging their noses and voting for Republican conservatives who at least say that they are pro-life. Because the philosophical alternative is outright evil. Do whatever you want. Have sex with whomever you want. Break up your marriage if you want to. Do whatever's good for you. And if you become pregnant, well, kill it. Kill the consequence of your action. This is the message that's being given to young people, especially loud and clear. And it's destroying society. You matter. You have become like gods. And this is very, very dangerous, as we know. So think about this for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. If a given politician thinks that it's okay to kill little helpless babies in the wombs of their own mothers, what possible difference does it make what that said politician thinks about taxes and job creation or anything else that matters? Imagine that just now on the way down here to the catacomb, I decided I was going to kill a little girl in the street who was whatever, in my way, so I ran her down and killed her. And now I'm going to sit here and expect you to take me seriously when I break down my ideas for lowering taxes or creating jobs. I mean, it's outright insanity. You're not going to want to listen to me talk about that after I just admitted that I killed some children out in the street. So when you bring it closer to home, the gravity of it, the horror of it sort of sinks in a little bit. But this is what's going on in politics. This is what's going on all across our country. Millions and millions of little children right now are dead. They were killed before they ever had a chance to live, much less vote, in this brave new world of ours. And millions of people just don't care. Politicians are campaigning on a woman's right to kill her own child. And this is not just the far left, hateful fringe of liberalism that I'm talking about. It's happening everywhere. The repugnance to abortion is dying off. Even now, I mean, in what passes for conservatism in this country. How often have we heard over the last few years, for example, any talk about the plight of the unborn at Fox News even? Conservative Fox News. It's becoming rare, very rare, because nobody wants to talk about that anymore. Abortion is, pro-life. That's sort of for goofy religious zealots. Let's not get too bogged down in that. But when U.S. conservative politicians stop speaking out in defense of the unborn, the most helpless among us, it's all over. There's no place that we can hide from that monster that believes it's just fine to continue to protect those who would kill babies. Kill children. After that, politically speaking, and in every other way, nothing else matters. We have become a nation of barbarians. 150 years ago, the great Pope Leo XIII warned that unless things change, the human family and state have every reason to fear lest they should suffer absolute destruction. Absolute destruction is what we're facing right now. We're close to that. In fact, in the face of the U.S. High Court's decision to legalize the murder of the unborn in this country, our nation put God on notice. We officially defied God and contravened his law. We made that the law of our land, a defiance of Almighty God. And because of that, we as a nation are now in a total free fall. And there's nothing that anyone from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton can do about that until we address these fundamental issues, these moral, social issues that are plaguing our people. And this is why the family is struggling right now for its very survival. And this is why it is significant. I'm sorry, it's very significant. When politicians, no matter how weak they might be in other areas, But when they at least say that they are pro-life, this is significant because it means that humanly speaking, all is not lost. That there are sufficient numbers of people in this country who still care about God's law and human life to warrant at least lip service from politicians. Because God help us when that era passes, when the lip service is no longer even necessary. When that lip service ends, it means that there's nothing left of the good people. There is no special interest group that cares about God's law or human life. It means it's over. It means we are spiritually dead. It means there are no God-fearing people left to appease in this country. And that is going to be a nightmare. So down here in the catacombs, are we single-issue voters? You bet we are. It starts with abortion. If a politician gets that wrong, and will do nothing to stop the murder of millions of the most innocent and defenseless among us each year, he or she cannot possibly be trusted with anything else that matters. And those conservative bloggers and commentators who would say otherwise have simply begun to lose their faith. They become numb to this unheard of atrocity called abortion, an unheard of atrocity that has become the landmark of our post-Christian civilization. Blatant thwarting of God's design for the human family. They've become numb to it. And maybe to some extent we all have been, in fact, become numb. Maybe we're all getting used to our own stench, to our own hearts being made black and hardened by so many decades of godless entertainment, godless politics, godless education, godless living, and pretty much doing whatever the hell we want. That's the new and improved American way, and that's the problem. And we cannot let that happen to ourselves or to our people, to our children. So I'm going to close tonight with something quite different. I'm going to read a little poem that my father published, Walter Matt, published in the pages of The Remnant in the early days immediately following Roe versus Wade. I don't know, I suppose I was about 7 years old when my mother first read this to me and to my sisters and brother for the first time, and I never really forgot it. It's called a prayer, well, it is a prayer to Our Lady, asking for her intercession on behalf of the millions of children, of babies, killed in the wombs by their own mothers. And it's called a Ballad of Our Lady of Tears. I'm going to read that for you in conclusion tonight, if you'll humor me and hear me out. I think it has a very powerful message for our time, especially just a month away from the election. O Mary, Mother of all men, remember how one day you rocked a little boy to sleep in a cradle filled with hay? Remember how you held him the long and weary night. You fled from Herod's soldiers in Egypt's dismal flight. How the lonely stars looked down, how the night was long, with hoofbeats in the distance, but in your heart was a song. You trod the darkness round you, you warmed the sands so cold. You lulled the winds to whispers and turned the tears to gold. When God was very little, and life was very new, with death a lurking shadow, he chose to cling to you. He chose not heaven's legions, nor Michael's sword of flame. To shield him in the darkness, he chose your tender name. Your tender arms to hold him, your tender eyes so deep, your tender voice to comfort and sing his soul to sleep. Look down again in pity, O Mother of our Lord, upon a world where children still must flee from Herod's sword, where Moloch claims his victims still, and still the price is paid, where lust is crowned and love is drowned, and death a grim charade, where little ones are torn apart or burned with baleful brine, where murder in a velvet coat is a social valentine. These little hands, these little feet, these little eyes and ears, O Mother, see their misery, baptize them in your tears. They have never known the sunshine nor felt the cool of rain. Their heritage is horror, their first caress is pain. They were the breath of springtime, the promise April gave, till winter's vultures ravished, their cradle is their grave. And now before the Father some ask, whose can these be? Please wrap your arms around them, say those belong to me. For love of him who was little too, who traded heaven to be with you, take these children torn apart to the playground of your heart. Bruised and swollen, crucified, On the cross of human pride, may their bodies perfect rise, take their souls to paradise. Let them not for want of grace linger in a darkened place. Ask your Son to give them joy. He was once a little boy. Now and at the hour of death, may they feel your gentle breath. Tuck them in a bed of white. O Mother, sing to them tonight. For the Remnant Underground, I'm Michael Matt, and we'll see you next week.